Guys will be removing the waste from the dumpster. 2 people sorting the waste, Pat and Wes. And then Jody, you're going to be the scribe, so you're going to be writing it all down. Kathy, you're going to be weighing it, so figuring out actually how much is in there. And John, you're going to be bagging the waste. So the way we're going to do this is we're going to pretend this is a real dumpster here. And this is a furniture manufacturing company that we use in the simulation. And the setup is, and just so you know, this is actually a real furniture manufacturing company in Indiana that participated with Purdue University as they developed this. And this is actually, the numbers that they use are a scaled down version of what they actually found during their dumpster dive process. So they had gone through and done recycling efforts in the plant and found recycling sources for their wood, their sawdust, all this kind of stuff, and they were still had a lot of trash. So they brought in Purdue to help, 1, figure out how to get rid of their trash, and 2, where to how to get to that next level and develop this material at the same time. So some of the things you'll find in here before we get into it that will go. So you've got earplugs here that are wrapped in plastic. This is a simulation. I wasn't gonna undo them and stuff. Assume these are used earplugs. We've got other stuff. For example, foam peanuts that are in a plastic bag. Just assume these are random foam peanuts that are kind of hanging out. They're in a plastic bag, so you guys don't have to pick up each one individually. And so there's a lot of things like that. So they'll say do not open on it. You don't need to open anything. You can just pretend that plastic isn't there when you're waiting and sorting and that kind of stuff. The #1 thing with all dumpster dives is safety, right? So we have personal protective equipment for all of you over there. So you guys can go put on your equipment. You got goggles, masks, gloves, and aprons. And we'll get you all set. If you're weighing and tongs, sometimes you can just take the dumpster and dump it over in a giant tarp outside. That's another good way of doing it. So some examples of things that you'll find when you do a dumpster dive: foam. That tends to be a hard one to figure out what to do with. Even from the sorting perspective, where would you put foam if you were sorting this out? Plastic, right? It's a plastic. In some places can recycle it, some can't. Styrofoam is very easy to recycle. The problem is it takes up a lot of room and has 0 weight. So if you have a company near you who manufactures foam, they will take this. There's one down in Keokuk area, Fort Madison, that manufactures foam. Anybody, anytime can drop the foam off at no cost to them, and they will recycle it and use it in their end product. However, if you're more than about 30 miles away, it costs so much to truck this thing around, it's not worth it. It's easier to just throw away. There are other solutions. You can dissolve it. There are different things you can do. But so if you have somebody near you who uses foam, you can use it. If you don't, then it's probably just easiest to throw it away.
You know how your packages, there's so much of it.
There are some places that recycle it,
But also, we actually let the members bring that to work because we have a place, they take it right back there.
Yeah, we have a truck that goes back there
every day.
There you go.
The members can actually bring it to work and recycle it right there.
Do you bring it down to foam fabricators? Is that who makes it for you?
every day.
Every day.
And really, to recycle foam is wildly easy. They have a machine with a blade in it, and it just chops it up, and that's all they use it for.
If they use 20% recyclable each time, 20% is recyclable.
Pretty good.
So that's contaminated empty furniture polish bottle.
That's one of these things.
One of the other things you'll find is food, right? A lot of cafeteria waste, all that kind of stuff. That's always going to be a challenge for companies.
You're not doing it.
We don't allow glass to go.
Really?
Well, okay.
Yeah.
Like there's aluminum and metal.
You've gotten some of the weights done. Can you kind of give me an idea of what you found for weights?
Paper, we had 2.4 pounds, plastic, we had 0.9. We didn't put a glass, metal, we had 3.1 pounds in the bag. And then other, we had wood at 1.2 pounds and the fiberboard at 1.2 pounds also.
So, one of the hard things about this is we just did weight, right? So, there's the weight or volume question. There's the quantity versus weight. So wood, we talked about, I mentioned real quickly, this company had already found a recycler for all their wood. They had a source for all their wood. None of it should go to the dumpster, and yet it's in the dumpster. You will find that. So we worked with a company here in Iowa that years ago was very low waste and had slowly kind of accumulated up and moved away from zero, or at least low waste, and had a lot of trash. They had 3 people non-stop through their facility taking trash. We did a walkthrough with them, and we just kept saying, well, I thought you could recycle that. I don't think you can recycle that. And we ended up looking at it, and they were spending about $70,000 a year in trash. They knew of a company that did recycling, and they brought them in after our discussion and just said, what can you take? And the guy walked through the facility and said, I can take it all. I see maybe 1% of what you guys throw away that is not trash. So what they set up is the recycler comes in and takes all of their trash, takes it about 80 miles away, separates it and recycles it in their own facility, and whatever is not recyclable, they send back. This company, in one day, flipped a switch, signed a contract with him, and has reduced 99% of their landfill. Instant. The cost for that, the recycler, the deal they made them, it was a net zero cost. He said, show me your trash bills for the last year, and I'll charge you exactly what they were. So, zero, they didn't get a return on investment there from the direct operational side. But environmentally, there's a huge benefit, and let's all be honest, marketing there is a huge benefit, right? So as part of their company, they could say, we've reduced 99% of our landfill in the last year. That's really important. So for zero cost, they got some great marketing benefits, some great environmental benefit. Those are some of the things you can see out of this. What I want to show you here real quick is kind of what the results of this look like if you follow through this whole process. Is you're going to go through and create a chart that breaks them down. And you can see here pretty clearly where some of your best opportunities are. Probably metal and paper. But what about other, right? Correct. So that's one of the cautions when you do a dumpster dive. Don't just put everything into one bag or one bucket and weigh it. Try to break it down into as small a piece as possible, as appropriate. Take a lot of pictures, because you're not going to remember what everything is. So, put it into an area, spread it all out, take a picture of it, and then weigh it, so that when you come back, you don't have to go do another dumpster dive if you don't want to. Those types of things. From there, once you've got things to go after, once you know that I want to get rid of my cardboard, here's a nice and sounds easy, right? But this could be a year-long project, right? You've got 100, 200, 300 suppliers that all send you cardboard. A lot of it gets thrown away. A lot of it gets recycled. A lot of it gets reused in companies. That tends to be a complex process, but a valuable process. Switching from cardboard to reusable containers, you guys said you did. That is a valuable thing to do. Tends to be a pretty good return on investment. What you're going to do, once you say, I want to go after cardboard, you go back to your lean tools here, root cause analysis, those types of activities. That's what we do in our workshop, is we go through fishbone diagram to help try to understand what the sources of them are. Whatever root cause tool you like to use is perfectly good with us. We don't care what tool you use as long as you find one. And then once you find that root cause, then you start to ask the 4 R's question. How do I refuse, reduce, reuse, recycle? And if I can't do any of those, is there any way I can get energy out of it? And you'll see a lot of companies use that as kind of their last solution here. So. Any questions on the dumpster dive? Yes?
You talked about how you might have to separate the plastics into, like, by their numbers or whatever. Are there guidelines somewhere for how to do that with plastic, glass? I think there's even different types of cardboard sometimes.
Yes, there is.
Yeah.
There are guidelines, and there's specific categories of waste, and within those there are subcategories of waste. So the problem is it's not always one-to-one the categories versus how you should separate them. So thermoplastics and that type of stuff get recycled differently than others. So sometimes it depends on the manufacturing process in addition to the type of plastic. But that's so down in the weeds. Essentially, the easiest way to recycle or separate plastics is by number. So that code at the bottom will get you 95% of the way there. So just look at what the number is. Sometimes they're not going to have a number, makes it a little harder to figure out, but there are ways to figure that out.
I have one question.
Yeah.
Looking back at all this, all that was in the dumpster. Okay, I
Yep.
think most everybody here knows how to recycle most of that, but it was still in the dumpster.
Correct.
How do you stop that?
Careful. It's a culture thing, right? So in our
I see
course,
this every day.
we spend a lot of time in our courses on stuff like this. So the number one thing is make it hard to throw things away and easy to recycle them. So you tend to see big trash cans and then little recycling buckets. Just do it the other way around. Do big recycling buckets and little trash cans. That works. Make it really, really clear. This type of stuff goes here, this type of stuff goes there. Pictures, cutouts in the bins, in the recycling bin, make it hard to throw things away. Make it so easy to recycle that people recycle instead of throwing it away. And really for a lot of that, it's a workstation by workstation effort. Understand what the wastes are in that individual workstation. So you can do a dumpster dive at a workstation. You can wait till the end of the day and dump out their trash right there and figure out what's being thrown away, and then come up with different types of bins to sort that right at the source. You always want to sort at the source as much as possible. Get them to recycle right there, as opposed to trying to do it later on.
Because I believe our issue, Dan, wouldn't you agree that I think we have a pretty good recycling program process, but we still have this in the trash. That's probably our number one concern right now, right now.
Yeah, we're down to.
We're down to that.
That's the hard problem too. And yeah, you're right. It is relatively easy to go after most of the big stuff. It's the little behaviors that are hard to do.
Containers, pictures on everything you were talking about, I think we have most everything you
Some of the things.
just said, but we still end up with that in the trash.
And
Move your trash way out of the way.
Yep.
Because nobody's gonna want it.
correct. That is the most effective way that we see.
Really.
Yep. Don't give them the option. And the other thing that we find, and even more so than it's trash, it's okay. Even more than lean, one of the things is that people on the manufacturing floor really like green. Really want to be part of it, really want to do things with it. So sometimes with lean, it's a long effort to kind of get that culture going, to get people invested in the process, to get rid of the stereotypes behind, oh, am I going to lose my job? With green, you say, hey, we're going to be more environmentally friendly. A lot of times your biggest issue is kind of controlling the energy that goes into it and pointing them all in a direction, as opposed to trying to convince people to do it. So a lot of people like to do green. They want to be better for the environment in a manufacturing job, and so you're going to get a lot of initial response to it. So I don't know what your response tends to be like, but if you make it clear to people that we're doing this for an environmental benefit, you might get a little bit of extra there too.
So Reese, have you been to Ohio State, like in the last year or so, stadium?
No.
Has anyone else been to Ohio State stadium? So there's no trash containers there.
Really?
We've gotten rid of all of it, so they do like 98% of it gets recycled. And they just figured out that they could get down all the items switched over to compostable.
Yeah.
So it's basically a decision on it's dry or it's wet. And they compost the wet and they recycle the dry, and the little bit that's trash is in the noise. down to that 1 or 2%, so you take away all the options basically, but it's a process they went through the last couple of years, but for a place like that to get it down up to 98% or something, that's pretty crazy. So yeah, that's, places that have done it, there's solutions there.
One thing they throw out that might be helpful too, up at the hospital, we just recently went with a split compactor. And we're able to recycle and compact on the same compactor. And so if space is an issue, instead of having a big compactor for recycling, look at that as an alternative.
You have a divider in the middle,
Pardon?
there's a divide, divides in the
Yeah,
middle.
two chambers, 6